Good evening, this is David Etton in the Channel 1 Atlanta Command Center. We're receiving breaking news that we've been covering for you here on, actually over on Twitter for the last couple of hours, where swarms of drones have been headed toward Israel from Iran. This is the first time this has ever happened in history that Iran missiles or drones, anything war-related, has actually came from Iranian soil. Now, Iran has told some of its proxies, terrorists like Hezbollah, to attack Israel, but never directly from Iran to Israel. Again, multiple drones, almost 100 of them, or a little over 100, is headed toward Israel, and we also have reports of cruise missiles incoming. And we understand in the last few minutes that the Israeli media is reporting that they have intercepted now some of the drones and missiles along with the United States. Let's get the very latest now as we go live to CNN.
Proxies is ironclad. And tell our viewers right now about the U.S. military's involvement in trying to prevent these cruise missiles and other rockets from coming in over Israel. What is the U.S. military?
The U.S. military and the U.S. intelligence community, Wolf. In that photo, what of the CIA, Bill Burns, speaking with the president. Next to him was Avril Haines, the director of national. And those are two people who have been focused for the past 2 weeks on trying what Iran would do in retaliation for that Israeli strike in Damascus. Would Iran seek revenge against Israel? And it is arguably the option that Iran chose tonight of the various scenarios that could have played out. Iran directly attacking Israel from Iranian soil. Something like this, the U.S. military had moved more assets to the Middle East. We have air defenses. Of course, there are U.S. troops and U.S. air defenses all across the Middle East. Ships in the Red Sea, in the Gulf of Aden, in the Eastern Mediterranean, of what we saw tonight. But Wolf, we have been talking to our sources for the past 2 weeks trying to would do, and it really only came into focus yesterday. Carry out tonight's attack from Iranian soil. CNN reported yesterday military assets, including drones and cruise missiles, around 100 cruise missiles were being. That was certainly an indication of what we saw tonight. And I'm really struck the two facts, Wolf, that Iran is claiming that this is over. That's a at the same time, Israel and the U.S. in the support role very, very much dealing. Still incoming. Those drones, we believe they're also cruise and ballistic missiles. Whether Iran is done firing everything that it intends to, so noted, it does not appear that anything has hit its target. No craters, no death. But this is far from over. Despite hearing there those sirens, those interceptions, Israel is still very much. So we will see what Israel decides to do in the coming of a response. We will see whether Iranian proxies decide a supporting role with what Iran is doing right now. But no question, a corner here. This is a new chapter, not just in this war, but in terms of the animosity, the rivalry between Israel and Iran.
Very, very important point indeed. A new chapter in this entire situation. So we know the U.S. military is involved in helping the Israelis shoot down Iranian drones and these cruise missiles, these rockets. Are they doing that outside of Israel or the West Bank, for that matter, as they're coming in over Jordan, over Syria or Iraq? Are U.S. military capabilities going and these other missiles and rockets over these territories as well, or waiting until they to Israel?
There is certainly an intention, Wolf, to try to strike down whatever they can before Israeli territory. There are U.S. troops in Iraq, in Syria, and then, of course, in those various bodies of water that I mentioned. And so there is every intention, variety of anti-aircraft systems, aircraft themselves, intercept the variety of weaponry that Iran is sending at Israel tonight. Slow moving. Those are certainly among the easier things that can be taken down. Israel, we got reports before those sirens went off, before we saw those interceptions. The U.S. had already helped to take down some of those drones beyond Israeli. Exactly clear what path those drones and those missiles are taking, but you do have these all across the Middle East and all across the region to make every effort possible can before it gets to Israel. Wolf.
And I assume that was a source of a great discussion the U.S. Military Central Command had with the Israeli military over these past few days and try to destroy incoming rockets and missiles. At what point would the Israeli air defense over Israel proper, would they take charge over that mission, which is a important mission as well? Alex, stand by. We're going to get back to you. We're told, by the way, that with his top national security advisors in the White House Situation Room, has concluded it could reconvene later. They're watching all of this very closely. The stakes for the United States are enormous. Obviously, the stakes for Israel are enormous as well. I want to bring in Aaron, State Department Middle East negotiator. You've been involved in this region for a long time. A historic sense of what is going on right now, the fact that Iran capability is launching rockets and missiles against Israel from Iranian, simply relying on their Iranian proxies, whether Hezbollah or the Houthis or others, doing it directly themselves. Give us a sense of how significant this is.
Trivialized, Wolf, but it reminds me, and thanks for having me, it reminds me of the line from Wizard of Oz to a little dog Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. And frankly, I think this is historic. You know, Israel and Iran, as you know, Wolf, have been at each other, at least described as the campaign between the wars, shadow wars, Israelis striking cyber attacks both against Iran and against Israel, attacks on Iranian shipping, and strikes, as we've seen in Damascus, on top Iranian commanders. But this, a direct attack using drones, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles. I don't know if that's accurate. You would have thought the cruise missiles would have defeated the drones, and no reports about the kind of missiles that the Israelis and so I think this is extraordinary. Whether it's transformative, I think we'll now on how the Israelis are going to respond. I'm reminded of 1991. Saddam Hussein launched 43 Scud missiles at Israel, and State Eagleburger was sent by Bush 41 to try to persuade on Schmier in what was an extraordinary act of restraint, agreed on the assumption care of the rocket launchers that launched the Scuds, which they did eventually. I think it's going to be very difficult for this Israeli government, because even if there are no casualties, there's no damage. The Iranians have set a new precedent. Essentially, now, go after IRGC members, wherever they are, Lebanon, Syria, even if they're on quote, Iranian sovereign territory, military installations or embassies. Now you have a precedent for the Iranians striking Israel. I think what the government is going to do, and then if in fact they will, the Iranians respond, and will Hezbollah inflict a much greater level of pain, I think, quickly on the Israelis. Inventory of high trajectory weapons. What does Hezbollah do? So that's the mind.
And if Hezbollah does that, and as all of us know, has a huge number of rockets and missiles in their inventory in southern Lebanon, reach Haifa, a relatively northern part of Israel, Kiryat Shmona has already been evacuated. Tens of thousands of Israelis have left Kiryat Shmona. So those missiles that Hezbollah has in South Lebanon, they not only could reach Haifa, Tel Aviv, and some of them might even be able to reach the southernmost point of Israel. About that.
I mean, you remember, Wolf, the summer of 2006, major confrontation between Israel and Hezbollah. The Middle East power, Israel, the northern half of that country from Haifa to the Lebanese border was days. And that was when Hezbollah had a relatively crude. Now they have anywhere up to 150,000 high trajectory weapons, modalities, and precision that could cover most of Israel. And that's a serious question about Israeli deaths and casualties, and which is going to be directed against Lebanese infrastructure with many deaths and casualties. So in coming days, or maybe even sooner, that's, to me, the critical issue is, is Benjamin Netanyahu picking up enormous points with the Biden administration if he were not to easing U.S.-Israeli tensions, which are already eased? Any thought of conditioning or military assistance to Israel as a consequence of what's going on in Gaza, I think is now, at this point, Gaza is now secondary. And the tragedy here is any hostage for prisoner deal, I think already very slim, very difficult to put back on track, because Hamas will wait to see how Iran and Israel can cause, which is precisely what they want.
Moment right now in the Middle East, and those of us who have covered it for a long time, potentially could go on. In the olden days, and let me get your quick reaction, an Israeli government would launch what they used to call a preemptive strike, let's say against Lebanon, try to use their air power to destroy as much of Hezbollah's missile and rocket on the ground. I anticipate, though, that is not necessarily going.
I mean, I think the Israelis, again, with one front war in Lebanon, the Israelis are prepared, and they've had 16 years. Hezbollah opens up with its inventory. The Israelis will mount a massive and air campaign. And unfortunately, Hezbollah will suffer, but worse, the Lebanese public is going to suffer.
Right, the people of Lebanon will suffer in the process. Aaron David Miller, will get back to you. Thank you very much. Dick Robertson is in Jerusalem for us. We're now hearing about an injury on the ground as a result interception of these rockets and missiles coming in from Iran over Jerusalem, injuring someone. What do we know about that?
South of Jerusalem in the Negev area, so not danger is there. Very severely injured is what medical authorities are saying at the moment to his head. Now, these do appear to be shrapnel injuries from the interceptor missile. Standing in Sderot, watching the interceptors perhaps a mile away, and then quite literally a minute later, you could hear the shrapnel intercepts a mile and a half away tinkle to the ground, tinkle the tarmac road that was close to us. The shrapnel could travel such a distance, and when we went out to look at it and see on the ground, these were lumps of metal that would cause what appears to have happened here. So not an injury to this 10-year-old boy as a direct result of a missile itself, but the interceptor, which of course is why the IDF is telling people where he is that they need to stay close to their shelters, close to their, because even though these bigger missiles coming from Iran are shrapnel from the interceptions themselves can be dangerous and well, and this boy obviously been taken to hospital now, and his condition though.
Yeah, it's a sad situation. I was in the border between Gaza and Israel a few other war was going on, and I remember standing there and the Iron Dome would go off and destroy an incoming rocket or missile coming into Israel. The metal that came down from that destroyed missile, it was so powerful, they were huge. And I could only imagine if some of that hit a person, the damage that could be done. To see those missiles destroyed, because if they're not destroyed and they hit a populated area, it could kill a lot. Once they're destroyed, they got to come down, all those the metal and the shrapnel, and as well. Stand by, Nick. We're going to get back to you. Colonel Cedric Layton, retired. He is joining us right now. You're our military analyst. What's your assessment of around militarily and over the skies, and not only of Jerusalem but elsewhere in Israel?
About this is that this is really a change, as Nick was mentioning in his reporting at Alex. This is going to really change the way in which the armies of the Middle East. There's going to be a different style of warfare. There's going to be, in essence, what the Iranians have talked about for a long time. Now they're actually putting this into practice. And maybe they've learned some lessons from Ukraine, where some of the things that have happened are now being used, transferred by the Iranians to Israel. And here, Wolf, is that with the way in which the Iranians are doing this, they're kind of doing a that multi-layered attack is going to have a major impact on how air defense systems are. Right now, the Iron Dome, Arrow, David Sling, those Israeli systems seem very effective, actually, against the Iranian attacks, as far as we know at the moment. This kind of volume that they're dealing with is going to impact how these systems intelligence is integrated into their radar picture. Because
the Iron Dome is very effective. System very effective. David Sling, another system very effective. But if hundreds of are coming in, and cruise missiles and other sophisticated rockets, it gets pretty.
Because one of the key things that you have to think about is if you're going to be a military operator, like a radar operator, looking at an incoming picture, you see what's going on. You see all the different inputs that discern which one of these is something that you have to attack, which is something or ignore, which are things that you can postpone until later. And those are decisions basically split seconds. And that's where, systems like the AWACS, Patriot, and of course the Israeli versions of all of that really play a large role.
A significant. Our friend from the New York Times is with us, a CNN national security analyst. One thing that I hope I'm worried about it, but let me get your thoughts. I'm told to developing a nuclear capability. How close are they? If Israel retaliates, none of us knows what Iran might do.
Yeah, what we know is that the Iranians shipped most of their nuclear fuel out after with the Obama administration. After President Trump decided to pull out of it, they have slowly begun to build back up. And they probably have enough now for about 3 years. But it would take them probably 6 months, maybe a year, to actually weapon. I think the bigger fear here now is that if we are really at the cusp, one in which there are direct strikes back and forth between Israel and Iran, the temptation for Iran to race ahead with the nuclear program could be pretty high. They've been moving steadily, slowly, but they haven't been racing toward it as far as we can. It's been an interesting bit of restraint. There's a second thing we're looking for, and it gets really to what Cedric just. If it turns out that these waves are one and done, now we're not seeing more coming, then I think it's a signal from Iran that they have, but they don't plan to get into a situation where the Israelis are go take the next step. If, on the other hand, this is and others, that it truly is an effort to overwhelm the system, then that's a very
proxies like Hezbollah or the Houthis taking aim at Israel.
Complicates it a lot. Complicates it because President Biden and his aides have been on the phone to Prime Minister saying, let's let tonight be it if there are no significant casualties.
That statement that the Iranian mission at the United Nations put out basically can be deemed concluded right now.
So that's a really important signal that I'm sure they're looking at.
Yeah, they're looking at it very, very closely. Lots at stake right now. Everybody's staying. Will continue after a very quick break.
breaking news.
I'm Wolf Blitzer in Washington. We're following major break of Israel. A wide-scale aerial assault is going on right now with waves, drones, and missiles streaming in from Iran, directly from Iran. Jerusalem has been hearing explosions. The sirens have been going off over these past several months. Forces have reported intercepting multiple Iranian attacks. But the ultimate impact of this latest Iranian barrage will be not the immediate damage, response that it might bring next from the Israeli military. Our reporters and analysts, and we have reporters everywhere watching all of this unfold. I want to go right to correspondent Clarissa Ward. She's joining us from Tel Aviv. Clarissa, we heard the sirens go, rockets being intercepted by the Iron Dome over Jerusalem. What are you seeing over Tel Aviv, Israel?
Well, we had been hearing, Wolf, jets in the sky. It is quieter now. People are bracing themselves. Ongoing waves of drones and missiles and intercepts potentially going throughout. A lot of concern as to what this portends. People really, I think, these extraordinary images that we're seeing, particularly over Jerusalem, of the over the Al-Aqsa Mosque itself, one of the holiest sites in Islam, grapple with what this portends for the region more broadly. We heard from the IDF spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, any moment has closed its airspace. It has advised residents throughout the in several key areas. I can hear another jet now in the distance, to remain close, to be vigilant, to stay close to their phones, to make sure that they're following updates. Closed, universities have been closed, and everyone really just bracing themselves next, because as we have discussed previously, Iran is now declaring this offensive achieved what they set out to do, and it's now over. But really, until we see the damage or destruction that may or may not come as a result of this unprecedented, it is far too soon to say that this is over and done with. Not nation. So certainly tensions here very high, and across, people wait to see what these future waves could bring. Wolf.
Yeah. Right now. So just to be precise, I take it that Ben Gurion Airport, international of Ben Gurion Airport outside of Tel Aviv is now shut down. Is that right?
We have seen people in this hotel coming with their suitcases. They were told, don't even bother going, because as long as you have missiles, drones in the skies, of course, they are not going to be allowing civilians to land or take off. We also saw a lot of people in our hotel gathering in the lobby, those asking where the shelter was. A lot of nervousness, as I said, hotel staff telling them that wasn't. And again, just to underscore, Wolf, we haven't heard of direct, don't have a sense of any significant casualties yet, though there is a report of one in the Negev area who was seriously injured. And so at this appear to be remarkably effective, but that does nothing to detract, I would argue, Wolf, the moment in terms of how this could quickly now escalate into that region everyone had been fearing and had been hoping to try to avert.
Clarissa, stay safe over there. We'll be in close touch with you. I want to go to Jerusalem right now. Nick Robertson for us. Nick, for viewers who may just be tuning in right now, tell us what has been going on the last over the skies of Jerusalem, a city that's holy to Muslims, Christians, and Jews. Jerusalem.
Well, if there were fighter jets and all number of red traces of what appeared to be Iranian missiles being shot down in the skies, the intercept different directions. There were perhaps we saw 30 to You could hear the detonations. You could hear detonations coming from other. You could see at times what appeared to be missiles and steady through the air and then being intercepted. It appeared that much of the intercepts that were ongoing, but there did sound like the detonation type intercepts going on in the background. I'm hearing jets above, but there were some very detonations, and of course the sound of sirens, and you could hear on the streets as well the sound of people when all of this was happening. Now, there have been no indications we've had, despite all those intercepts above this densely populated city, populations, Arab populations here as well, that there were no so far. Of course, the IDF spokesman will be bringing an update on that. But I think one thing now, Wolf,